former President Trump delivered a double-barrel blast on Wednesday, condemning the desecration of a monument to Robert E. Lee and claiming the Confederate general would have led troops to victory in Afghanistan. He delivered his verdict after America's largest Confederate statue, the 12-ton bronze monument Lee in Richmond, Virginia, was removed from its pedestal. Black Lives Matter supporters chanted and sang "NA Hey Hey" as it was winched away. Our culture is being destroyed and our history and heritage, both good and bad, are being extinguished by the radical left, and we can't let that happen, said Trump in an emailed statement. If only we had Robert E. Lee to command our troops in Afghanistan, that disaster would have ended in a complete and total victory many years ago. What an embarrassment we are suffering because we don't have the genius of a Robert E. Lee. In so doing, he was able to highlight not just President Biden's handling of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan but what he sees as an attack on the country's history. The 21-foot bronze statue of Lee atop a horse will now be sent to the Goochland Women's Correctional Center in Virginia until officials know what to do with it permanently. It was cut at the waist into at least two pieces on Wednesday. It is the latest Confederate statue to have been toppled by the BLM movement amid protest from white residents who thought it should be preserved in history. Trump said Lee was revered as one of the greatest military strategists. It has long been recognized as a beautiful piece of bronze sculpture, he said of the statue. To add insult to injury, those who support this taking now plan to cut it into three pieces, and throw this work of art into storage prior to its complete desecration. Crews began hoisting the 21-foot-tall bronze likeness of Lee on horseback about 8 a.m. and an hour later, it was on the ground, protected by a fence which kept crowds of spectators back. After being brought to the ground, workers began severing the top of the statue from the bottom using electric saws. Workers who were removing the statue gave the crowd a 3-second countdown before they lifted the statue from its pedestal. The crowds of spectators cheered. Whoop then broke into song, chanting "NA NA 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 NA, hey hey, goodbye" as it was lowered to the ground. They also chanted "Black Lives Matter." The 40-foot concrete pedestal that it sat atop will remain in place for now, until officials decide what to do with it. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam made the decision to remove the statue last year 10 days after George Floyd's killing by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. The statue was erected in 1890, 25 years after the end of the Civil War, and 20 years after Lee's death. It was funded by the Lee Monument Commission, founded in 1886, which was led by Lee's nephew, former Virginia Governor Fitzhugh Lee. Along with the statue, a time capsule that was buried at the site is also expected to be removed on Thursday and replaced with a 2021 capsule, filled with 39 artifacts that include an expired vial of a COVID vaccine, a Black Lives Matter sticker, a New Virginians booklet with portraits of 24 migrants and a Virginia is for Lovers Pride pin and sticker. In a statement after it was removed, Governor Ralph Northam said, "This was a long time coming, part of the healing process so Virginia can move forward and be a welcoming state with inclusiveness and diversity." He added that it represented 400 years of history that we should not be proud of. The statue had been fenced off and the roads surrounding it were closed at the start of the week in an effort to thwart crowds of protesters on both sides of the debate over removing it. Pedestrians watched the removal in a designated area on Monument Avenue. Northam announced plans to remove statue in June 2020, 10 days after George Floyd died under the knee of a Minneapolis police officer, sparking nationwide protests against police brutality and racism. In anticipation of the statue coming down, the roads around it in Richmond were closed on Wednesday. The plans were stalled for more than a year by 2 lawsuits filed by residents opposed to its removal, but rulings last week by the Supreme Court of Virginia cleared the way for the statue to be taken down. It wasn't immediately clear what would become of the sculpture, though some media reports indicated it would be stored until government officials determined how to dispose of it. General and slave owner Robert E. Lee, hero of the Confederate Army who became an icon for alt-right Robert E. Lee was a decorated general and slave owner who led the Confederate Army in some of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War. He joined the Army in 1825, and graduated from the United States Military Academy in 1829 and was the son of a Revolutionary War hero. Lee first saw action with the American military in Mexico in 1846. He later served as Major General of Virginia's state forces. During the Civil War, he led the Confederate side in the battles of Gettysburg and Antietam before surrendering to Union Gen. Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia on April 9, 1865. He was a decorated war hero but a prolific slave owner, who punished the slaves had inherited by lashing them. In 1859, Lee severely punished 3 slaves, Wesley Norris, his sister Mary, and a cousin of theirs, after they tried to escape the plantation. A newspaper at the time claimed Lee had them whipped once they were captured and returned to Virginia. Mary received 20 lashes while the 2 men received 50 before the pair were sent to work on railroads in Virginia and Alabama.